Hi, I'm Mark Lowry from MindLab, and today we're going to talk about the different gold modes on the Gpz 7000. I've got my colleague here, Phil Warlick, and we're just going to talk through the different modes. As you might know, there are three main gold modes on the detector. The detector comes in the default mode, which is high yield, and then basically you're left with two other modes, and some of you might be wondering when you're out detecting, when do I choose to use those other modes and what do they give me? So maybe, Phil, if you could just talk us through the different modes.
Sure. So we start with the high yield mode. We designed this high yield mode to give the prospector the best performance increase for small and medium nuggets. So we're talking about an ounce and less. So we know that for a lot of prospectors, it's those nuggets which they find most of. And so this mode is designed to give those people the best advantage in the gold fields that we can give them. Because of the size distribution of the gold that's out there, this mode is likely to give you the most gold for your time. So that's why we call it the high yield mode. Your yield of gold is likely to be the highest with this mode.
Yeah, and that's why we run with it as default. So basically, just to get you going and finding a little bit of gold, it's a good place to start.
Right.
And you build up familiarity with the detector.
The remaining two modes, the general and extra deep mode, are actually fairly similar in design. Both of them are designed to give you significant depth on the larger nuggets. So we're talking a few ounces and larger, very, very large nuggets. The main difference is between these modes is essentially how hard we push the detector. In the general mode, we have still retain significant performance on the very small gold. Not so much as high yield, but still substantial performance. When you do that, you have to push the technology to its limit.
Right.
And in doing so, you make the detector a little bit more susceptible to ground noises. So the general mode, although it's a great all-round mode, finds the deep nuggets, deep large nuggets, as well as small nuggets at depth, can give you a little bit more ground noise at times. And if that's the case, you can switch over to the extra deep mode. And in this mode, extra deep mode, we don't push the detector as hard as we do in the general mode. So we relax it a little, and in doing so, you give up a little bit of sensitivity to your small nuggets, but still retain that depth on the big nuggets.
Okay. So basically, if you want to target deeper stuff and maybe less lead shot or small stuff that's in the gold fields, run with general. But if you keep hitting ground noises, it might be a good idea to switch to deep for a while. Just be a little bit quieter, but still shoot as deep as general.
That's right.
Okay, well, it's been really interesting, Phil. Thank you, and thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Mark Lowry from MindLab, and today we're going to go through the different ground types that you might find on the Gpz 7000. Basically got three: normal, difficult, severe. My colleague here, Phil Warlick, is going to help us talk through when you would want to use them or not. Phil, when would you start with normal, or maybe you should start with difficult? What are the things that should run through your head when you get out the gold field?
Right. So in the Gpz, the three ground types, they offer different levels of ground signal cancellation. Now, moving from the left to the right, we have increasing levels of ground cancellation. Starting at the left, the normal mode, this has the weakest form of ground cancellation. If it's possible to use normal, then you should use normal.
And that's primarily because it goes deeper?
Certainly. So with the weakest form of ground cancellation, you retain the most of your detector's performance.
Okay.
So the normal mode certainly is the mode that will go the deepest if you can use it. So if you can use the normal type in whatever soil you're operating in without it producing too much ground response, then you'll get the best depth.
So when you talk about ground response, that's basically you get out of the car, you turn your detector on, and you start sweeping over the gold field. And if you were running it normal and you're just getting heaps of noise all the time, it's quite possible that area is just too noisy to use.
That's right.
That mode.
So you might find that you go to an area, you run the normal ground type, and you can ground balance on the spot if you were to pump the detector up and down.
Right.
But as soon as you start moving side to side, you might find that you pick up a whole lot of false signals from the ground.
And your user might even think that their detector's broken. Potentially, it would make quite a lot of noise, won't it?
In a lot of cases it can. And it's in those scenarios that you want to turn the ground cancellation up a notch and you want to go up to the difficult setting. Now, the difficult setting is, at least here, that would be our go-to mode because the grounds that we operate in here around Minelab are fairly difficult soils. They're challenging.
Because we're we're testing the detector to make sure it works in as many soils in the world as possible. So we find a lot of the time we operate difficult.
Right. And so the difficult timing is a reasonable go-to timing in a lot of areas. You don't sacrifice a whole lot of performance with the increased ground cancellation, and you'll find that going from normal to difficult, a lot of that noise that you get from the ground when you sweep the detector side to side just disappears, and that allows you to pick up those faint targets where in normal timings, although it has more power in normal timings, you just wouldn't be able to hear above that noise floor.
And it does take a few swings usually for the detector to balance out the ground when you're, say, running in difficult and it's having to deal with the ground noise.
Yeah, it can do.
Yeah. So when would you use severe? Is that just another notch up on difficult, or is there something more to that?
Right. So during the development of the Gpz, we tour around testing in a lot of different areas around Australia. And in these tests, we found some soils which just about no detector could handle. So we put some effort into trying to understand what was happening in those soils that was causing such significant noise.
Yeah, and the noise would occur when you basically, as you put your detector down towards the ground, you literally get noise as you approach the ground.
Right, so in the very last inch, as you're lowering the coil onto the ground, you just get significant signal. And that makes it very challenging if you want to find the small bits of gold which are near the surface, because you just can't get your coil close enough to the ground. It's also challenging operating in those soils if you're trying to pinpoint a target, because again you need your coil very close to the ground.
And as soon as you try to pinpoint in those kind of scenarios, if you haven't got perfect coil control, you're basically getting false signals from being close to the ground.
So we've designed the severe timing so that you can operate in those soils. So as an operator, you might start using difficult in those scenarios, but then find when you move the coil too close to the ground, you get an audible response. Now, if that audible response is too much to handle, so you can't hear faint targets through that noise, then you should consider moving to the severe timing.
So when you're in severe, I mean, there's a trade-off being made, isn't there? I mean, it doesn't go as deep. That's probably the biggest trade-off.
Yeah, certainly. So anytime you try and cancel more of the soil response, you're also inadvertently cancelling some of the detector's performance.
Yeah.
So you do lose depth as you move across the spectrum of ground types, but with the correct choice of ground type, you cancel more of the ground response than you do of the detector's performance. Yeah. So it turns out that you're more likely to find nuggets in noisy soil if you're using the appropriate ground type.
So I think to summarise, you should always try and stay to the left in the normal type if you can, and if you can't, then start moving across here. But periodically check if you can move back across. If you're in severe, see if you can move back to difficult, because that way you're just shooting deeper as you're walking around. You've got more chance of finding gold. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Mark Lowry from Minelab, and today I'm going to show you how to connect a WM12 to your Gpz 7000 detector. I'm going to start on the home screen. I'm going to use the page button. I'm going to go across a couple of pages down to the Connect WM12 icon. I'm going to select it. Okay, it's asking me to power on by pressing the power button. Okay, the next thing it's asking me to do is to choose a channel. It's randomly selected a wireless channel for me to connect across, so I'm just going to go with the one it's chosen. And now it's asking me to press the pair button. And I can hear the audio coming out of this now. That's now connected, and we could walk around with wireless audio. The next thing I'm going to do is connect an additional WM12. Just going to put this one on my arm. Grab an additional one. We've already gone across to the icon to connect additional WM12. I'm going to select that. It's asking me to power on. And now I have to press the pair button. And now I have audio coming out of this one as well.